This is the Fearn VT-7, which is stereo compressor. This unit is all vacuum tubes. The entire audio path is Class A triodes all the way through. And I'm going to go through the controls for you, which will give you a good sense of how this device works. The two channels are identical, and the primary knob that you're going to use most of the time for setting this up is going to be the threshold control here. This adjusts the amount of compression. When it's all the way down like this, there's no compression at all. Turned all the way up, it's capable of about 30 dB of compression. As you turn that up, of course, the level goes down, the output level goes down, and this gain control right beneath it is a makeup gain control, which is used to compensate for the amount of gain reduction. So as you turn this up, you'll turn this up approximately the same amount. When the unit is in the compression mode, you have several controls that affect the sound and how it processes the audio. The primary ones are these two, the attack and release times. In the full counterclockwise position in each control, it's the fastest position for attack and release. As you turn it to the right, the attack time becomes slower. This can be really useful when you're recording certain types of sounds, say a snare drum. If you have it set all the way to the fast position, the compression is going to kick in instantly as the drum hit occurs, and the entire drum hit will be compressed approximately an equal amount. As you turn this up, it will reduce the amount of compression on the initial hit, on the attack of the snare, which can dramatically change the sound of the snare drum. The release time is similar. As you turn this up, it takes longer and longer for the gain to return to its normal setting after it's been hit with compression. So in a very fast release position like this, almost instantly, as soon as the sound stops, the gain will come back up again. So using our snare drum again as an example, if we give it a fairly long attack time like that and couple that with a fairly short release time, you'll end up with a snare that is extremely powerful, because you'll have the initial hit, which will come through at full volume, and then the compressor will bring up the rattle and the rest of the sound of the snare and any room reverberation, whatever else. Now, when you have these set to their fastest positions, you will experience a lot of low-frequency distortion. That's a characteristic of all compressors and limiters. It's not just unique to the VT-7. That happens because the compression is actually attacking and releasing on the individual cycles of the low-frequency notes. So on some types of material, there's a limit to how far you can go in the fast position before you get that distortion. Generally speaking, you only have to back it off a little bit to eliminate that if you're looking for something with a real fast attack and release. The third control, which affects the sound of it, is this one, which we have a little trouble describing exactly, so we just label it harder and softer. One extreme here, it's in the hard position. This position is in the soft position. This does several things simultaneously. That's why it's hard to describe. And it's really the kind of control you have to play with and listen to hear if the effect is what you're looking for. It affects the ratio as well as the shape of the compression curve, both simultaneously. So you can go from one extreme to the other. On some types of material, the difference is pretty dramatic from one end to the other. On other types of material, there's not much difference at all. It really depends on how much compression you're using and the effect you're looking for. Each channel has a VU meter. It's a true VU meter, which can be switched to select either the gain reduction, which will show the needle deflecting to the left, giving you an approximation of the amount of gain reduction that you're using. And when you flip this switch to the right, it monitors the output level, which can be useful for resetting your gain after you've determined how much compression you want. Most of the time, you'll leave that switch in the gain reduction position, which will give you a visual clue of sense of how much the gain is being compressed. Of course, since this is a mechanical VU meter, it doesn't follow the peaks. So there can be relatively little deflection of the needle on some sounds that have a lot of percussive energy at the beginning. And there's, in reality, quite a bit more compression than you see. But that's one of the kind of things that you'll learn from experience and turning the knobs to see what it'll do. This is a stereo compressor, but the channels can be used independently. When it's in the separate position, the two channels are completely independent, can be used on separate sounds. There's a good deal of isolation between the channels, so you can use them on completely different tracks without any concern about crosstalk. When you switch the switch to the link position, the two channels are linked together so that the compression is equal on both channels despite how much energy there is in one channel or the other. In the case of a stereo mix, to give you an example, supposing you had at the intro of a song, there was let's say a piano, which was more or less in the center of the mix, but you had an electric guitar panned fully to the left. If you were to leave this in a separate position, what would happen is the compression from the guitar track on the left would bring down the gain of the left channel much more so than it would the right channel. And as a consequence, your stereo image will shift. And that shift can be very disconcerting because it's not what you expect to hear, although you can also use that as an effect if you wanted to. But by switching it to the link position, it couples the two channels together so that when the left channel guitar track is asking for, let's say, 5 dB of compression, the right channel will compress 5 dB as well. This particular VT-7 is a very early one. It's serial number 5. And since that time, we've modified them slightly and added another feature, which is not on this one. And that is a third position on this link switch, which allows you to switch in a high-pass filter in the side chain. The advantage of that is that it will prevent very low-frequency sounds from modulating the overall level of your mix. If you have something with a very dominant bass drum, for example, that bass drum can completely control the whole level of the compression and give you an effect which does not sound pleasant and desirable. But by switching in that high-pass filter, it reduces the sensitivity of the compression circuitry to the low frequencies so that they no longer will be the controlling element and the overall mix will sound much better. As a side benefit, when you have it in that high-pass filter position, you can run the attack and release times practically down to their fastest because you no longer have that low-frequency content in the compression. When the VT-7 is set to the linked position, only the controls on the left are active. They control the compression and characteristics for both the left and the right channel, with one exception, and that is the gain. When you have it linked together, the gain controls are both still active, so you can use that if you need to trim the gain so that they're precisely balanced. The only other features that we should talk about are the power switch, which is on the back, and this pilot light on the front, which tells you the unit is on. And that's the VT-7 stereo compressor.